It's amazing how every time I believe that the NCAA is dead, they rise from the dead like Lazarus. And they're right back to put fear into someone? How? Why?
They know that there's something on the coach. And 2 games is pretty light for whatever it might be. Because they fired the NCAA, the same quote-unquote governing body that had the president of the NCAA say that Michigan won their national title fair and square, is now seeing that Michigan is self-imposing a 2-game suspension for Sharon Moore, their head coach, going back to the Connor Stallions scandal over sign stealing. And the Big Ten's punishment for violating the sportsmanship policy. They had to go without Jim Harbaugh. The NCAA back then was more pissed about the fact that Harbaugh, in negotiating with Michigan, would not accept the 4-game negotiated suspension. He wanted, 2 or 3, and began to make that public. They normally negotiate behind the scenes, and then if you do as it's agreed to, thank you. We'll take out our wrath on Kentucky or Tennessee moving forward. Well, today, Sharon Moore, it's learned that he's taken a 2-game suspension. Not the first 2 games of the season, mind you. Nebraska's one of them, and then Central Michigan?
Central Michigan and Nebraska are the 2 games that he's going to sit.
Central
the
Michigan
self-imposed penalty.
They've yet to conclude their investigation on whether or not Connor Stallions was, in fact, on the sidelines for the Michigan State game. Nonetheless,
it's really poetic when you think about Central Michigan, the full circle moment.
Do you think this 2-game suspension is going to serve as the proper punishment, according to not us, not the public perception, to the governing body? I say that in jest, of the NCAA.
Well, let's go back a little bit on this, because it's amazing how every time I believe that the NCAA is dead, they rise from the dead like Lazarus, and they're right back to put fear into someone? How? Why?
Yeah.
But Michigan is shit scared about this, or they wouldn't be self-imposing a 2-game suspension of Sharon Moore, their head coach. So there is something going on here, because Michigan has been defiant at every turn. They were defiant about Jim Harbaugh. They were defiant that they are still comprised of Michigan men that stand for more than this, and there's nothing to see here, and everybody gets signals in different ways, and it's not that big of a deal. And they got rid of Connor Stallions and did some different things along the way, but who did they end up hiring? Sharon Moore, along with Jesse Minter, the guy who was mentioned in the investigation more than anyone else, for deleting text with Connor Stallions, for knowing everything that was going on with advanced scouting. And they didn't go outside. They didn't felt no shame. They just won a national title. They hired from within. They promoted Sharon Moore. Michigan has remained defiant time and time again against the NCAA, which I believe is a smart thing to do against the NCAA, because the NCAA is not a very strong entity right now, which, as we fast forward to today, is why I'm so surprised that Michigan is self-imposing anything right now. So whatever the NCAA came back with, Michigan came back and said, no, we're not doing any of that. We're not in the wrong here. And then the NCAA said, not so fast. Here's what we have on you. And they said, okay, 2-game suspension. But we get to pick the 2 games. It's not going to be the conventional first 2 games of the year. It's going to be Central Michigan and at Nebraska, which is a separate conversation about the absolute disrespect shown to the Cornhuskers in this by Michigan by electing to suspend their head coach for that game. But this is what's weird about it, Hutton, is the moment I think the NCAA has no more clout, Michigan, who's been defiant all along, comes back and says, yes, you do. And in fact, we're going to self-impose a 2-game suspension.
So they're doing this ahead of a hearing that's going to take place June 6th and 7th with the NCAA committee, the infractions committee. They're self-imposing this. There is no agreement, according to Sports Illustrated, about the games. They don't necessarily have to accept any suspension, the infractions committee. They will. They don't have to accept the games that Michigan has picked out. They can say, no, you're going to do it here. That's what's publicly stated, if they accept the 2-game suspension. But the resolution to the case is expected to come down before the season begins. The hearing on this, where they are going to present all of this and have them, answer the questions, is going to come up June 6th and 7th. So this is just, to me, Michigan doing the same thing, Chad, where I don't think they are scared because they know that there's something on the coach. And 2 games is pretty light for whatever it might be because they fired Connor Stallions over it.
Yeah.
And this is a 2-game suspension for the head coach who was the OC, who was then the co-OC, and they kept elevating him the whole way to replace the guy who the NCAA hates in Jim Harbaugh. So, this is the NCAA who would have given Harbaugh what type of suspension? Harsh? We know it would be harsh. I don't know what that would be for all the violations where he just kind of – he was the definition of not scared. He was just like, I'm sorry, I'm out, peace. This is more for the long haul of, hey, we're self-imposing this. We're ready to move on. Are you guys ready to move on?
Yeah, and
I think it's still mocking them in a way.
I don't know why you do that unless there's something really damning
right
in that report coming back.
But only 2 games, though.
Yeah, but this is negotiation. They're thinking they're going to come back with a season or a half a season.
I guess.
So 2 games, hey, take it easy on us. You might come back with 4, and we'll accept that.
But this is ahead of the hearing, though.
Could be 4. That's what I'm saying. But this is the first offer. Hey, we're offering you 2 games in hopes if you offered 4, they'd say 8. So they might be saying we're offering you 2, you're going to come back with 4, and we'll take it if that in fact is the deal.
Why I
don't know.
Why the 3rd and 4th games?
Because
that seems very specific.
New Mexico is their opener. You don't want to be without the head coach in your season opener to start a new season. And they go to Oklahoma in week 2, and that is Sharon Moore's alma mater. He played offensive line for the Sooners in 06-07.
Okay.
So that's why they even wrote in what they sent to the NCAA. Here's why we're doing it. We want him to have a chance. Pat Forty wrote about this very well, saying it's funny that your coach broke the rules, and we're admitting that. But also, we can't embarrass him and not have him coach at his alma mater when we go on the road to Oklahoma. So it can't be that game that he's going to sit out. And I think 2 things are true here in this story. All right, and there's a lot of people really falling on one side or extreme or the other on this. I think Michigan knowingly cheated their ass off. I think they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew it was against the rules. Connor Stallions knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to get a leg up on the competition. He was smart, smart guy. We've seen the documentaries. We've heard all the interviews. But he knew exactly what he was doing. He can play coy all he wants. I also don't think that what they did gave them some gigantic separation from the competition that unlawfully won them a national title. I do think that they won the title on the field fair and square. I think they also knew that they were getting a bit of a leg up, and I'm sure there's others that do the same thing. I'm not saying Michigan is the only one. They're the ones who got caught. I'm sure someone else has done the exact same thing before, but I don't think everyone does it. So then if you acknowledge those 2 things being true, the question becomes, where do you fall down on what is an appropriate punishment for Michigan? And I don't know what that answer is, but Michigan now is giving us some indication they think the answer should be a 2-game suspension for Moore.
Well, I know this. If a 2-game suspension is what it is for the head coach, and who knows what else comes of this, Connor Stallions was over-penalized.
I think Connor Stallions...
If, in fact, that's what it comes down to from the coaching end of it.
I think Connor Stallions is the unfortunate scapegoat in this that we see all too many times. He's not a guy that had any power within the program. He wasn't a high-ranking coach. He wasn't a high-ranking member of the athletic department. And the coaches knew exactly what he was up to, even though he's protecting them.
Moore definitely did, because Moore deleted 52 texts.
Even though they're protecting him, they knew what was going on, and he's the fall guy.
But on the text, there was, obviously 2 people at least. It was Moore deleting 52 specific texts with Stallions. So we're going to know what's on those texts eventually. But it's enough to get a 2-game suspension. But you have your guy who's salute to Connor Stallions, by the way. Let me say this, because he's also on the record. He said this with Crane and Company. He would have staffers call him during the season and say, hey, can you pass along the intel that you have on this team or that team? And, all of that same info circulated to other programs. The dude has not turned over intel like that to the NCAA. There's nothing out there. And the staff itself or former players with Michigan, not one person has rolled. Think about how difficult that is in this day and age. In this sport where you try to scratch and claw to survive, you're over-recruited. You hit the portal, but not because you want to, but because you have to, because someone in the portal jumped you, or NIL is overpaying the backup. So sorry, but you may be nudged a certain way. You could be pissed off and want to say something. Players in the NFL are asked about it. Nothing. Coaches, nothing. And yet, even the guy who was fired and had to put on a hat and a disguise and still mocks the NCAA to this day because he says the sign stealing is not illegal according to the rule book. He's correct. What is, though, is advanced scouting. I want to know more about that, which he's been very mum on. And I also want to know more about what he is alluding to about hacking into computer systems that he believes is the next big phase of cheating in this regard. To the practice film and how everyone's using the same type of system.
Yeah.
That
they use the same service.
The same service, the same cloud.
That someone could sell intel to programs
or you
about
can hack
someone
into
else.
Michigan's practice if you're facing and see what's going. Again, like he's telling us what he would be working on. In a way, I'm fascinated by that too. But the guy is, I give him, I say salute because he hasn't rolled on. He just took the year. He's also he can't go back for 3 years, right? I believe they gave him the
show cause.
The show cause, 3 years.
He's got a show cause, but I think everybody's just following his lead. He took it. He got out of. He can't coach in college. But I don't know that he's going to have another opportunity. He took. Granted, he was the mastermind behind it,
and
but
no one contacted him.
Other coaches knew about it, and I think because he's not rolling on everybody, everyone around him, everyone in that text group that he talked about, there was a me at all these other programs, and we had a text group going to share information on what we had. That he's never going to give those guys up, and they're not going to give anything up either.
But I'm saying
because of his silence.
Even players that have been a part of it, or could be disgruntled in some way. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like they're not even alluding to anything.
It is tough to keep that much silence about it.
I think so, man. So, what does it say about Nebraska, Chad?
Well, it shows how far Nebraska has fallen as a national power. That of 2 games on the schedule, you would choose to suspend your coach for Game 3 against Central Michigan, which does make sense.
Yep.
At home, and then at Nebraska would be the next one.
And then they have the bye week coming up. They get the coach back.
Yeah, I understand the timing of it because then, yes, you get the bye afterward and you load back up with your coach and you're good to go for a home game against Wisconsin. But, man, oh, man, if I'm the Cornhuskers, I am pissed off for greatness about this decision by Michigan, and I'm looking to hand them a big old L when they come to Memorial Stadium early next season. That's what it tells me about Nebraska and what they should be thinking about this.
See, I just thought from Nebraska's standpoint.
I also don't think the NCAA is going to accept this 2-game. I think they're going to come back and say 4. And I think then the Michigan's going to have to make a decision about let's do 3 or we'll fight it or we'll accept the 4.
If it's just
if there's a counter offer.
I want to know about these texts that were deleted.
The screen, the imaging.
The intent to delete 52 specific texts.
Yeah.
I
just, I laugh at Michigan people that act like it's nothing. It's not nothing. It's not the end of the world either. They didn't completely eradicate the sport by sending his relatives and friends to games to record signals or anything, but it's something, and they knew what they were doing.
So absolutely.
I just the hypocrisy of this whole Michigan man thing. I just want that to end with all of this. And Jim Harbaugh, who I like and is an entertaining fella, and I think a really good coach. Come on, man. He knew what was going on.
The only difference...
You can't tell me he didn't.
Oh, I totally agree. The only difference in this self-imposed suspension versus Harbaugh is, to my knowledge, Moore will not be involved in practice that week. And Harbaugh was.
Yeah.
In the whole build-up to game day. He just wasn't at the stadium.
The facility
he
for
traveled
2 weeks.
He traveled with them to Penn State. He just didn't go to the game.
He was at the team hotel watching the game.
And Moore wept post-game.
He did. And I think Jim Harbaugh wept, too, watching that interview post-game.
Maybe he'll maybe he will weep after he goes back to his alma mater and plays.
Possibly. Big moment for him. Can't take him out of that game. We acknowledge that he cheated his ass off, but we don't want to embarrass him by not letting him play at Oklahoma, his alma mater, not coach there.
Just briefly, I'm looking at Wetzel's piece here. Said Moore's punishment self-imposed. Back in January, Michigan reportedly planned to fight the allegations in Stalions' sign-stealing scandal. According to the 137-page document obtained by Yahoo Sports, Michigan pushed back on many of the allegations. The school also accused the NCAA of, quote, grossly overreaching and wildly overcharging the program with a lack of credible evidence about the alleged sign-stealing scheme run by Stalions. The person who tipped off the NCAA to the situation came from Michigan's campus and at one point worked for the school, the document said.
The person that tipped off the NCAA?
To the situation. But this came out through the media first.
Well, it came out, I think, that they were... Did the media report on the investigation into Michigan first? Or did it come out about Connor Stalions and what he was up to?
It came out about Stalions.
Okay.
Because Stalions admits that he's like, his name pops up.
Maybe they were investigating quietly as the report came out.
Treat the case as a level 2 standard case instead of a level 1 infraction is what Michigan asked the NCAA to do.
I just continue to be
that would be the suspension.
By the NCAA's ability to come back from the dead.
Yeah.
I didn't think we acknowledged the NCAA anymore. I really didn't. I thought it had reached an area where they don't matter and you don't even respond to their emails. And now Michigan's self-imposing suspensions.
Self-imposing based on a level 2 infraction penalty, not a level 1, which is what they fear going into this. But they're still mocking them, right? They're giving a level 2 infraction penalty.
I think mocking them would say, we don't acknowledge your authority and just moving on with your day.
Well, for deleting text, I don't know. But they're saying that it's exaggerated.
There's something to it.
No doubt.
That's my big takeaway.
I want this. I want these texts. We'll go through them
I think the text just show, and it's been reported, the text just showed that he knew what was going on.
Well, I want to know.
They were talking about what he was up to.
I want to know if there's video advanced scouting on them. If one of the texts is a video sent.
Of the friend.
Yeah, what was Stalions doing on the Central Michigan sideline? That kind of thing. Like
where he still won't even confirm or deny that he was there?
Well, why would he when the NCAA has confirmed it, but Central Michigan hasn't? Remember that internal?
The AD, the woman that's the AD there that had the announcement about we're gonna investigate this. What a photo! It's a woman AD at Central Michigan that had the immediate report, and old boy that was at Florida was the head coach, Jim McElwain, at the time this was happening.
Yes, who has ties to the staff at Michigan, right?
The guy who humped a shark. Allegedly, and then it wasn't him at all.
Wasn't that who was that? Jimmy John?
No, well then they thought it's no one. I don't think. Remember, it was first McElwain, then it was Jimmy John, and then it was just some other dude.
Do you guys have the AD's name at Central Michigan? I'm looking at the staff directory now. I want to get this woman's name proper. Amy Folan.
Amy Folan,
or Furlan, I'm not sure. Is
Amy,
the Vice President, Director of Athletics.
We need to follow up weekly with a request to interview Amy Folan to get an update on that investigation.